So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pavan Pant, and as mentioned, I am so excited to be back on campus. It's always, exhilarating to be back here hearing about new technology. I recently joined PTC about 5 months ago, and I was very pleased to see the dosa factory up on the last slide because now I love dosa and I'm hungry, so I might just go visit. I'm here today to talk about enterprise augmented reality. It's a subject and a topic that some people have discussed, but not in sort of specific terms in terms of what people are actually doing. And I wanted to do that today because I, like most of you here, do believe in the transformative power of AR, and in particular as it relates to manufacturing. That's what we're focused on. So as I've gone around and talked to customers and to the market, it's become abundantly clear that AR has gone from being this shiny new toy to truly becoming a big part of the enterprise story. And they're being driven by digital transformation initiatives. So a lot of executives in the manufacturing sector are saying, look, we need to take this technology and really understand how it can help us solve our real business problems. We have a skilled worker shortage, we have high attrition. How do we do this? And what they're specifically looking at beyond the technology is also, what are the real metrics that matter? How can we make this real? And then finally, how do we not get into what is affectionately called pilot purgatory? So this notion of you get a piece of technology, you use it for a little bit, and then you sort of are mired in this scenario where you never get out of the pilot purgatory. So the first step that I always think of things in threes. Even though this was a 12-step process, I sort of condensed it down to 3 steps. The first is you identify the business value and what are the key business problems that your enterprise really cares about. So what are the clear desired outcomes that you need to have? What is the end state? What is the definition of success? That's one of the things we learn about here at MIT as systems thinkers, is define the problem. What is the problem statement? So that's really important, and it's critical to get that right. And then next is you have to execute. So you've heard from some of my peers today, Iora and Mike Campbell, and really thinking about the best practices in terms of how to deploy this technology out in the enterprise. So what are some of the benchmarks to think about? How do you specifically deploy this? How do you accelerate deployments in many cases? And we are doing that through planning workshops by applying agile methodologies to this and bringing to bear a lot of technology, not only from MIT, but other areas as well. So that's been very exciting to see. And then finally, you measure the value. So in this example here, the metric I'm focused in on is first-time fix rate, but there are other metrics like first pass yield that are very important in manufacturing sectors. So in this particular case, we see this very often. I have a problem with documentation. My people take too long to get trained, and then we have attrition. We can never retrain these people effectively. This is a big, big problem. It sounds very basic, but it's a huge problem. And that then leads to requirements and then the specific solution that we can bring to bear. So I'll show you some examples in the next few slides. And then ultimately, you have to measure against that. Is AR actually going to help? Because there are some headwinds in this market. We talk about the HoloLens and headwear, but in many cases, if the use case is too long, that can be a bit too cumbersome, especially in constrained spaces or in environments where it's a little bit more claustrophobic, like, say, a semiconductor environment. So these are things to keep in mind. That's not to say the HoloLens is not cool and valuable, but it depends on the type of eyewear you need to use. So it becomes very important to make sure you measure the business value at the end of the process. And so I wanted to share a couple of examples, and then I have a video which is publicly available, so I'm not sharing anything with you that's sensitive. The first is a company called GSI. They're an agricultural company, and they have something called a power dryer. It dries grain. And they used to have a training system that had 225 slides. I don't even want to be that person who had to walk through every single one of those slides. But they trained people using these slides, and it used to take 5 days. And using our technology, they created this experience, we call them experiences, to step through the training and reduce training time by 60%. So it takes 2 days instead of 5 days. Now, that may not seem meaningful enough, but if you add that up over the course of many days, over the course of attrition, there's a real impact on the bottom line for a lot of these businesses. And beyond that, it makes some of these jobs very, what I would say, cool. It's no longer the drudgery of going into a factory and doing the job. It's, it becomes more exciting for some of these folks. So that's really great. Another example, which I actually have a video for, I hope it works, is Cannondale. So for all of you bike enthusiasts, Cannondale is the manufacturer of high-end bicycles. These can cost anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 in some cases. I am not one of those people who purchases said bicycles, but I know people who do. And they had a bicycle which had multiple similar forks with similar components. And because of the intricacy and the complexity of this, it created problems not only for customers to understand it, but also when it came to servicing these parts, or which spare parts to order, excuse me. And so they created an experience that brought together the AR element of this to show people the specific components, to how to service it, and also gave them specifics in terms of configuration information like air pressure. So that's the video. I'm gonna go back actually. And what that showed you is exactly what I articulated, but it's always cooler to see it in action. That was created in fairly short order, and it is actually in use right now with a lot of Cannondale bikes. So if you're a user of Cannondale, you can download the software. It's called Before I View, and scan that thing mark. And I wanted to end with two things. One was, I've shown you some of these examples now, but what we're starting to see are real trends in terms of the value in the industrial enterprise. In terms of productivity, we're seeing anywhere from 40 to 60% reduction in training time, and that can go higher or lower depending on the type of training, depending on the environment. We're seeing improvements in first-time fix rate. We're seeing more efficient use of people's time, so errors are lower. And finally, people are actually using it to differentiate their product. So these, what we call sales and marketing use cases. We expect to see, more focus on productivity and effectiveness, but certainly Cannondale is one example of a customer who's using it to differentiate their product, but also using it to help them with servicing the product itself. So it's been very interesting to see this journey unfold, because 5 years ago, AR was not even being considered in some of these use cases, and now it's real, which is very, very cool to see. And then finally, if you're about to embark on one of these, or even if you're not an industrial enterprise customer, I think one of the pieces of advice that I got a long time ago that I believe in is focusing on the short-term wins. So it's very important, if you want to be successful, if you're embarking on one of these projects, to pick something that's easy, that you can define very quickly, define the value of, and then make it a public win. And it has to be authentic. It can't be manufactured. Something like that Cannondale use case, you can't make that up. It's real. People are using it. And so my only advice would be that if you're embarking on something like this, do make sure that you're being authentic. If you enjoyed this, you want to learn more, you want to see more videos, learn about the other customers I'm talking about or talking to, I'd love to connect. I'm a Sloaney. I'm not as smart as some of the other engineers in this room, but I'm certainly very focused on creating and capturing a lot of value. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.